I sometimes actually felt how he palmed my face with his hands, and that just brought me an inner peace. I really noticed how my heartbeat became calmer, how my breathing changed, and I also learned later that that is often the way people who have passed come through to us. It doesn't always have to be that you see or hear something, rather they show us through feeling that they are there and something changes within you.
Miss Graniere, you work as a medial grief counselor. You've told me beforehand that ever since you can remember, you have perceived messages from the spiritual world. But you have received important impulses for your spiritual path through after-death contacts with your partner, with whom you had a very special connection. First of all, I would like to ask you to tell us about the circumstances of his death and what you experienced afterwards.
Well, he had been in hospital for weeks before his death. I need to give a bit more details on that. He had a stroke 3 years before his death and had global aphasia. That means he could neither write nor read nor speak. He wasn't able to regain all those abilities before his death. He was very, very diligent. He was able to regain some words through speech therapy, but it was only mechanical language, no longer a spontaneous language.
That means the time before his death was very demanding for you.
It was very exhausting, especially the first year, but it got better and better. You could already see that cognitively he was fully there. But at that time, when he couldn't speak at all, we had to guess his needs, so to speak. We helped each other with sheets of paper I had made on which only individual words were written. He could read individual words, but he could no longer read words in a coherent context.
But there was a very strong emotional connection between the two of you, an understanding.
It was a great love. We often said what the other person was thinking. We were extremely connected. The first 4 years of our relationship were long distance. That means we could already then feel what the other person was doing or how they were feeling.
That makes things easier in such a situation.
It makes things easier, but it is of course extremely difficult to manage this new everyday life, because he needed a lot of therapy and a lot of doctor's visits. I had to speak for both of us, to organize everything and to accompany him everywhere, because in our society, unfortunately, if you can't speak, many people think you're stupid right away. But he was really there cognitively.
Until the very end?
Almost until the very end. What he worked so hard for, to understand individual words or to express needs, you have to imagine he would go, food. And then I would ask him, what would you like to eat? And I would speak very slowly. But in the time before these words came, I was already allowed to learn to actually fulfill his needs, to put myself into his shoes. He wasn't able to gesture anymore. It's not like when he wanted to cut his hair that he would have gone like this. He couldn't articulate that either. It got better and better. He really wanted to go on vacation again, to travel. That was his zest for life. And when I say he already had a repertoire of 50 words, then it was a great achievement for us. We handled it very well. We learned to be happy with each other in a new way, until the stomach cancer came. The diagnosis stomach cancer was given in January 2014. He decided to go down the path of traditional medicine to undergo chemotherapy, and the first chemotherapy took away all the language that he had worked so hard for. So there were maybe 10 more words that he could use. Before his death in the hospital, I stayed with him for almost 24 hours, whenever possible, whenever the hospital allowed, even overnight. Because he couldn't tell me what the doctors had said at the morning rounds. He couldn't tell the doctors what he felt. After almost 3 years, I had become his voice. I could really convey what he wanted to tell me. You can imagine it like this. when I asked him something, or the doctors asked him something, the nuance of his voice, what he was able to say, it was kind of an automatism, which is caused by aphasia, like na, na, na. And how he said na, 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 with which emotion, I knew it was yes or no, or he wanted something else. Certainly in connection with intuitive feeling. That was shortly before his death, and I would like to say that I really considered it a gift that I was able to accompany him into death.
So you were present at his deathbed?
Exactly, I was there. But I only knew it on the day he actually died. There was hope until the very end, because they couldn't find any more cancer cells after his surgery. His entire stomach was removed, and they couldn't find any more cancer cells. Nevertheless, it kept going downhill. And a nurse told me she thought he wouldn't survive until the next day. And I would like to add that my husband, Herbert, was a Jew. I was raised Christian, but he actually called himself an agnostic, because he could not connect with the Jewish God of the Old Testament, who was always so wrathful, nor with the Christian God, the man with the white beard. But if you look at it without religion, I would say he led a life that God couldn't have imagined any more beautiful. He was a completely honest person, a helpful person, a caring person.
Did he believe in an afterlife at all?
Yes, that was quite a thing. When I could still talk to him, I told him about my world and also how I perceived visions and voices. He was actually completely open, but it was also totally new territory for him. But everything I told him was always taken at face value. There was no doubt, he just listened to me. And it went so far that he even became clairvoyant himself and was able to talk to me about these things. I told him that his hands were special and that I felt a power within them. He did not know what it was, but he always felt that his hands could do something. But all his life, he had never had anyone with whom he could talk about it. He did not know what would happen after death. He certainly did not think much about it. I do not know, but I will see. He was completely open. And when we talked about God, also in relation to the different religions, he was able to accept a God the way I too believed in one, who is full of love and full of energy, not a man with a white beard, a God who does not judge, just pure love and energy. It was actually one of the most beautiful days of my life when he said to me, yes, I can accept this God, because somehow it was important to me that he felt that there was something.
So you agreed on this deep level?
Yes. And as I said, before his death, we talked about dying because we did not know how everything would turn out. I think it was in July. He died on August 11th, 2014, and in July he showed me for the first time that he believed that he would die. I already had talked to him about it before, and so I said to him, look, my dear, if you really have to die, then I am on your side and I will accompany you. And I told him about my idea of heaven, and that when he dies it will be easy and that he should follow the light, and that his ancestors and angels will be there to pick him up, and he should go full of joy, because my idea of it is that it is simply beautiful. But I also told him, if you can fight your way back into life, then I am at your side at every step, and we will walk every single step together. It was the only moment where I lied a little, where I cheated a little. On the day when he actually died, when I said to him, I think you will go, and if you want to go, go in peace, and go with all your love. I will manage without you. I will make it. I think I cheated a little. I mean, in the end I managed to do it, but the time afterwards was very, very difficult.
The transition itself, was it then peaceful?
It took longer than we thought. All his organs had already shut down, but his heart simply did not stop beating. That was the only strong organ left inside him. It was a peaceful scene, but it took a few hours. It was not fast. He got morphine for the first time, which made it easier for him to breathe. He sweated a lot. My mother, his sister, and his daughter were also present. It was so peaceful that we prayed for him. We prayed with him. We stroked him. We could hold his hand. I would say that the last moments of breathing felt very difficult to me. And it was already a few times before when I thought, now he has made it. And then again a breath came in, and it started again. But he was also, it may sound strange now, a little bit humorous about it. He was already in the process of dying, and I called my children, they were 18 and 20 years old at the time, to say goodbye. And when they came in, he looked at them and said, "I'm still alive." There was a sense of humor in his eyes, a smile in his eyes, so I think it was really absolutely peaceful for him. He was prepared for it, and what I thought about afterwards is that he had a very conscious death, a conscious process of death. Me on his side, who told him again and again about the transition and about the other side, and he was accompanied with full love, so for him it was certainly peaceful. To me, the last moment of breathing felt very difficult, as if there had been pain. But afterwards, I read a lot, for instance, Kübler-Ross, who also looked at it scientifically, that the breaking of the silver cord can feel like that. But I'm sure he died peacefully. That's what he told me afterwards.
How did the after-death contacts begin?
It was an incredible surprise to me with which vehemence and strength it occurred. As I said, I have heard voices ever since I can remember, but I have never channeled them, it just happened. In this case too, it happened because after his death, they took an ECG to be certain he had passed. And I went out into the small garden of the hospital to cry alone. I just wanted to be alone. And suddenly he was there, not even 10 minutes after his death. I could see him, I could hear him, I could talk to him. And he was so full of love, so peaceful, so healthy, so happy. And I was quite surprised. I said to him, "You're already here?" I mean, somehow I did expect it. I had agreed with him that he would come speak to me after, but that it would happen so quickly after his death, I didn't expect that.
You saw him. How did it develop? Is it a kind of seeing as we see each other now? Or did you initially have the feeling of a presence?
It's like a clairvoyant seeing, where I can say I saw him with my eyes open, but he didn't stand in front of me in his physical body as if I could still touch him. He was somehow visible but transparent, so I could see through him. But I will never forget his first sentence. His first sentence was really, "My sweet, it's even more beautiful here than you told me." So that was his very first sentence. And although I forget a lot, I'm sure I will always remember that.
Did he then share more with you, or was it just important for you to know that he was doing well?
Well, at first, the most important thing was that he was doing well. But I had assumed as much already. That wasn't surprising to me. But he came right away with the message that he would take care of me, that everything would be fine, that he would look after me, that he would stay by my side in the process of grief. He also sang me a Hebrew song, and then he said he doesn't have much strength yet. He can't stay long. And I started crying again, but it was already a mixture of grief, relief, and yet, yes, he's just dead. And then he sang this song, and I said, "I thought you're weak and you have to go." And he showed me 2 angels next to him who had charged him with energy, who had helped him to communicate with me. That has been shown to me again and again. If someone does not yet have the strength to communicate, because it is also exhausting for the deceased, and as I learned later, they aren't capable of doing everything straight away, but it is allowed to be learned. I don't like saying must be learned. So it was all connected to this message that he would accompany me in my grieving.
And that's what he did?
Absolutely, yes.
How did the contacts continue to develop?
Well, at first, he was with me every day, several times. Not 24 hours a day, but whenever I felt extremely bad, he was there. I felt him, I heard words of consolation. I sometimes actually felt how he palmed my face with his hands, and that just brought me an inner peace. I really noticed how my heartbeat became calmer, how my breathing changed, and I also learned later that that is often the way people who have passed come through to us. It doesn't always have to be that you see or hear something, Rather, they show us through feeling that they are there and something changes within you. So he supported me very, very much, and I received messages again and again. There was a lot to be done after, as everyone will know who has been widowed. There is a lot to be arranged. He'd spent most of his working life in Israel, so there was also the barrier of the Israeli widow's pension and so on and so forth. So there was a lot to be done, and there were certainly times when I was absolutely desperate.
And above all, you always felt an energetic support.
Yes, but also, as I said with clear words, because he often said to me how he supported me. He always told me, and I may not have been able to realize that at the time, that everything passes faster than I think. This deep grief, it's a pain on the verge of madness. I'd say you're really standing in front of an abyss. I never had a longing for death or a depression, and yet this thought comes up. Why didn't I die too? If my heart were to stop beating now, then all this pain would be over, without actually longing for death. Well, I've always had a happy life. And that was one of the difficult things for me, that I couldn't imagine ever being happy again. I thought I was satisfied, but satisfaction was not enough for me. I had always been a happy, vibrant person. The messages in that regard were very clear. If I want to be happy again, I should want it again. Then he will do everything to help me, and it will come to be. And when I sometimes screamed, "How can that be possible?" then he calmed me down and said that I didn't have to know how or when. All he needs from me is my will to want to be happy again. Then the spiritual world can help me to be like that again. I can say that everything he prophesied to me came true.
Did the contacts become lesser and weaker over time?
Yes, there were phases in between when they became weaker. Then I contacted a medium to contact the other side. And again I was told, you will do it yourself. At the time, I could not imagine that. I was able to contact him, and Herbert also scolded me a little and said, I can't come all the time. You can keep learning without living in constant contact with me. But he also prophesied to me that we would work together spiritually. That was something we already felt when he was still healthy and alive. We never knew how, we always postponed it to later. When we got to know each other, it was a very strong impulse that it would happen in 10 years. Interestingly, he died after 11 years, and that's when our spiritual work together actually began.
From this spiritual work came a book, Conversations After Death, a different kind of grief diary.
Exactly, and that was also him. He said to me, write, sit down and write, get it off your chest. And I just went to the computer, be it day or night, and just started writing. And then, after about a third, I'd say now, of what later became the book, he said, let's make a book out of it. So I didn't even start to write with the intention that it would become a book. And I laughed at that and said to him, you already know how difficult it is to find a publisher, because I had already written spiritual short stories before and sent them to various publishers. But there were always negative responses. I thought, okay, the time is not ripe yet. And he said to me, you write, I'll take care of the publisher. And that's exactly how it was. Actually, a publisher found me. It's unbelievable what he did, what he said.
What do you mean the publisher found you? How did you experience that?
I had a girlfriend who had her own book publishing firm. And after I had trouble finding a publisher, I'd said to myself, I'm going to create my own publishing firm. And I wanted to, or Herbert led me to contact Karen. And I did. And I know her publisher's profile, and I thought my book doesn't fit in there. And I just wanted to ask her how she founded the publishing firm, what do you have to consider? And she said, send me your manuscript. It was about half finished. And I sent it to her, and she said, I want it, I'll take it. And from then on, there was an editor, there was a cover designer, there was a graphic designer. So that's how the book came to be.
A second book of yours is called Of the Miracles in This World and the Beyond. In it you address, among other things, a topic that often plays a role in after-death contacts, namely the fact that the bereaved experience special coincidences, striking events that seem to be connected to the deceased, signs from nature, from the animal world. And in the book you also describe a very special perspective on the afterlife.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Maybe you can tell us something about it.
I'm getting goosebumps. That's always a sign that the spiritual world is particularly present right now. There are many possibilities of how they do it. And that's why it's also a wish of mine to write so much about it and to inform on it, so that people who are in as much grief as I have experienced may know that there are these signs. I now particularly remember these signs with animals. I found that very special because it is a lesson I was allowed to learn during an after-death contact. A deceased person once showed me how he pushes animals into the field of this world as a sign for the bereaved. Especially with small animals, with birds, with butterflies, or with bees, this is most easily possible. They create a field of love like a cloud, and these animals are very fond of staying in it. And then he puts this cloud of energy into the field of the bereaved to whom he wants to send a sign. And I'm certainly not the only one who knows this, that suddenly, when you are very sad, it happened to me a couple of times, a butterfly moves around you or even sits on your hand and stays there for 10 minutes. If you know this, if you have this knowledge, then you can pay much more attention to it. Because I think that so many people get signs that they don't even pay attention to and don't even know how much their deceased try to get in touch with them.
In order to show that they are fine.
I'm here and I'm fine, exactly. But there are many more different signs and possibilities they have. It's almost infinite. I've heard from a client that a pillow was suddenly laying the other way around through some physical phenomena. Or you look for something but can't find it, and then it's exactly where you've looked a few times. So these things are also quite possible.
Do you have a general picture of the afterlife that you can give as a medium because of your contacts with the deceased? Are there different spheres of life, different levels? Or are all these descriptions ultimately just a translation? Because the afterlife is basically not comparable to the earthly world and also not describable.
Both. I always have the feeling that sometimes the words are missing, especially when it comes to describing the afterlife. And I also think that it has to go through the filter of a medium who can convey an image with the help of our limited language. And every medium has a different filter. It may also be that every medium describes it differently. But in the sense that everyone describes something different, every deceased can give me another little piece of the puzzle. And the way the picture has been put together for me from these conversations with the deceased, first of all, they all work, or they continue to educate themselves, they continue learning. And also, let's say that all of heaven, the other side, is intertwined with each other. Everything is interconnected. There's no here and no there. Even this world and the afterlife are connected to each other. Everything is interactive. And sometimes it has been described to me how we can imagine it. Because some people ask, for example, if the deceased is together with his mother again or with his deceased child. And I know that the bereaved want to hear yes, and I can really say yes. During the transition, they're all there together. But that doesn't mean that they are always together, because they also have other tasks. And I think it's best for me to describe it that way, or at least that's how it goes through my filter. It's always very important to me that I say these are my subjective perceptions. Nobody has the sole truth, so I can only say what is fitting for me. There are different levels, frequency levels, and I can say, after my death, I will go to the frequency level that I can reach with the power of my consciousness. If you want to describe it in black and white words, if I say, for example, I was a very loving person, then I go to this loving energy. But love exists in so many different nuances. If I say, now, we're not all good people, good or bad, that's only something that exists for us in this world. But if I know I was a very envious person, then I will go to a level of consciousness where envy prevails. And then I may not feel comfortable there. And I say, Okay, I don't want to be envious anymore. Swoosh! I'm on the next cloud, so to speak. I'm on the next energy level. It was explained to me that everything happens through recognition. What I recognize brings me to the next level of consciousness, and I'm immediately where I energetically belong. And this recognition can sometimes go very, very fast.
But in principle, the problem remains that experiences, insights, impressions from the other world are simply hardly or not at all describable in words.
Yes, the language that traverses this world and the afterlife is actually frequency, and I'm here to translate this frequency into German. Some people also ask me, my husband only knew Italian, is that a problem? I say no, he speaks to me in frequency.
Is your personal process of grief coming to an end?
Absolutely, yes. Sometimes there may still be a little bit of wistfulness when I'm reminded of something, but it is absolutely overcome. That's why I say time helps, but consciousness work, and wanting to get out of the grief is also part of it. It may sound impossible at first, but I can absolutely understand that it's a pain on the verge of madness. And sometimes, when I was still in grief, I was a bit defiant in my conversations with Herbert. For example, when he foretold me a new husband, I said outright, "No, I don't want that!" He just said succinctly, "You'll see, hardhead, you'll see." And then, on the 3rd anniversary of his death, which is also no coincidence, it was guided, I met my current partner, with whom I am very happy again, although I absolutely couldn't imagine it at the time. It's really a process, but people should know that I was also very unhappy and that I also had doubts about certain things. But it is important to want to get out of it with your own will. Often you hear in the process of grieving, yes, you have to let go. I think that's a terrible sentence. What do I have to let go of? I never have to let go of my beloved deceased. You don't have to let go of love either. On the contrary, love can stay. There is so much love, so much more love. I often compare it to children. When I have a child, I love it unconditionally. And when I have a second and a third, I don't love them any less. So you can continue to love, and you can love again. And I think it's very important for anyone who is grieving to know that I don't have to let go of anything. I'm allowed to let go of the pain. That's important, that you don't really cling to this grief. So yes, I'm allowed to let go of the pain one day, when the time comes. But love can stay.
I think that was a very nice closing remark. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.